Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be focusing on another contest creator program video, this time looking at the new champ coming into the game, Warlock. Just to be clear, this is only a temporary character that I get to use for testing purposes for a few days, and then he's removed from my account. I also do not work for Kabam, but I am a member of the contest creator program, which is a program used to take a look at newer champs or new parts of the game and share it with the community before it's actually released. So let's get to it. This is a rank 3 5-star Sig 200. We're going to go over his abilities, we're going to take a look at some gameplay, and basically what I think about the character. So let's get started. So we'll start off with Warlock's immunities. He's completely immune to Frostbite and Cold Snap, so he does not have to worry about that damage from Iceman. He's also completely immune to Bleed and Poison, so that's going to be very useful in the contest against certain nodes and certain champs. And also, he's not a bad contender for running the Suicide Masteries because he will not take that initial bleed and poison damage from Liquid Courage and Double Edge. So that's a great start. So next we'll talk about the armor with Warlock. Warlock has a permanent armor buff, increasing armor rating by 666.67. If this buff is removed for any reason at all, it will refresh itself after 10 seconds. This is a pretty sweet armor buff, especially against champs like Havoc. You never have to worry about that particular detonation damage that he does. Even when he detonates, Warlock will not lose that armor buff, so he's basically a great option for Havoc and of course other champs. Another cool feature about this armor buff is while the buff is active, opponent's special attacks cannot be critical. So we'll see that here with Ghost. Her first attack is always critical, and there was no critical actually taken. So it's not a bad ability if you happen to get caught by an opponent's special attack. You never have to worry about the actual critical damage that it might actually give you. So next we'll talk about the virus buildup. We'll talk about what the virus does here in a moment, but to build up charges, you basically have to do a well-timed block, as you see here. That gives you 3 charges. Striking the opponent gives you 1 charge per strike. If the opponent strikes you with a non-projectile attack, like basically hitting you, that is 1 charge as well. You'll see it up there in the right hand corner just below a Winter Soldier. There's a little yellow circle. The whole point is trying to get to 20 charges. So what happens when you get to 20 charges? When you get to 20 charges, you have something called an infection that goes on the opponent. You'll see that here in a moment. When I get to 20 charges, it'll transfer over to 1 infection. He's infected, as you see right now. While he's affected, the opponent is heal blocked. If the Salve Mastery is active, the Mastery is removed. The opponent also suffers a negative 30% offensive ability reduction. And if the opponent tries to actually regenerate health, they drain 5% of their current power over 0.5 seconds. So it's a very, very nice ability against regeneration champs. And let's take a look right here. So as I just mentioned, if the opponent has an infection on him, basically you will cause a heal block. As you see right here, this particular Wolverine in Realm of Legends has 3 infections on him at the moment, so he is unable to actually heal any regeneration. Also, while he's trying to regenerate, he will also lose some power. As you can see, the power kind of dropping there. That's because he's trying to regenerate, but he can't because he has the infection. So the infection does 2 things for regeneration champs. It stops the healing, and it also does some power drain, which is very, very nice. So basically, any regeneration champ is going to have a hard time against Warlock. You have to also remember that his infection is passive, so you won't be able to get rid of it. Now, one champ that really comes to mind is Mr. Sinister. As you know, every time you do a critical, he regenerates. But in this particular scenario, every time that he gets a critical, he doesn't regenerate and he loses power at the same time. So this is the uncollected Mr. Sinister, and I'm using a Warlock rank 3 5-star, and I'm just tearing them apart. Just tearing them apart. So very, very nice ability for regenerators. Warlock can really shut them down, and it's very easy to get the infection going, so keep that in mind. Now, one thing to be aware of is infection with buffs. When the infection is placed on the opponent, it usually lasts for 20 seconds. However, the duration is decreased by 6 seconds for each unique buff on the opponent when it activates. So champs that have a lot of buffs, like Venom here, every time that I basically activate my infection by getting 20 charges, he basically just clears it out because he just has so many buffs. So champs with a lot of buffs, or nodes that have a lot of buffs, his infection might not be as strong as it could be, or it might not work at all. As you can see here, this Venom has so many buffs, the infection actually never ever actually works. Now we talked about blocking earlier. If you do a well-timed block, you actually get 3 virus charges, which is great. But another thing that it does, if the hit was a non-contact basic attack, the opponent instantly drains 10% of their current power. So if you watch Iron Man Infinity Wars while I block, he actually gets some power drain every time that I block his attack, because he has a non-contact hit. Not all of his hits are like that, but a lot of them are. So a nice little bonus that when you're actually trying to block an opponent like this, they will take a 10% power drain drop. So we'll talk about the special one. The last hit shocks the opponent, dealing 1897.5 energy damage over 10 seconds. However, if the opponent is infected already, that shock damage will actually start at the beginning of the special attack and at the end, but only last half as long. So you're kind of doing like more damage, but in less time. Now also, the first hit removes all infections to passively drain the 25% of the opponent's max power over 5.5 seconds for each infection removed. So it's a nice ability. The ability to basically shock the opponent, also the ability to basically remove some power. But what I don't like about it is it removes your infections, and the infections can be pretty useful, which we'll see on the Special 2 coming up. So let's take a look at the Special 2, which is my personal favorite. The last hit places 2 armor break debuffs on the opponent, each reducing the armor rating by 2,000 for 10 seconds. However, much like Special 1, if the opponent is already infected, the debuffs also trigger when the attack is activated, but last half as long. So that's a very nice ability, because if he's already infected and you use your Special 2, the armor breaks will come first, and then you'll hit and do more damage. It also helps on champs like against Ember Frost, where you can take down her diamond form, which we'll show here in a moment. Also, another great thing about the Special 2 is it does not remove any of your infections, and it actually refreshes 1 infection. So this is the kind of one that I like to use basically when you're going up against regeneration champs, because if you use your Special 1, it will actually remove all your infections. You don't want that against regeneration champs. So using your Special 2 over and over and over again will actually refresh 1 infection, plus all your regular hits getting more infections. They will never regenerate. So we're going to show an example of what happens when the opponent is infected and you use your Special 2. So right now we're going to build up our virus charges. We have to get to 20, so we're striking her here. Now she's infected. So now when I use my Special 2, I'll actually armor break her before I attack. We'll see that coming up here. She's in diamond form. I'm playing a little differently because I just want to showcase this. So she's in armor form. I use my Special 2. As you can see, the armor break happened before, which brought down her diamond form, which ended up doing lots and lots of damage. So we'll talk about the Special 3, which is also pretty cool. Inflicts a passive power burn on the opponent, draining 100% of their current power over 5.5 seconds and dealing damage proportional to the amount lost. So the more power they have, the more damage you do. Also, we regenerate 683.6 health for each infection the opponent has. So watch his power basically after I use my Special 3 right here. It'll start to decrease. It doesn't mean he can't use his specials, but it will all decrease. So it's starting to go down, going down, going down, go down. I also took a small regeneration boost as well. It's not a huge regeneration, but it's a nice bonus. You know, if he's like 36%, he's got 2 infections, he can go up to like 45, 46%. So, you know, it's a nice little bonus. And lastly, we have his heavy attacks, which lacerate the opponents, inflicting 1,201.75 bleed damage over 5 seconds. And these bleed heavy attacks are actually stackable, so you can do more than one, but they don't last very long. They do okay damage, but definitely not something that you'd be using on a regular basis, I would think. So lastly, we're going to talk about the synergies. We'll just go through them really quickly. With Warlock, special attacks generate 70% less power in opponents. With magic, attack rating is increased by 50% while in limbo. That's actually pretty cool. I was looking forward to that because I have a magic. I brought magic up against Captain Marvel in Realm of Legends with and without the Warlock synergy. With the synergy, she took out Captain Marvel with 198 hits, and without took him out in 234 hits. So she actually is hitting a little harder when she's doing her limbo, so that's pretty cool. Also, Sunspot, who's pretty new to the game, gets Incinerate, has 25% increased duration. Now, this is kind of a cool ability, Robots Uprising. Whenever any teammate would receive a debuff they are immune to, they gain a Fury buff, increasing attack rating by 60%. for 6 seconds. So let's say Ultron got hit with a bleed, he's immune to bleed, so he would get a Fury buff for 6 seconds, having attack rating by 60%. So pretty sweet on that one. The next one, which is pretty cool, with Warlock and Cable, whenever the opponent would get one or more virus charges, there's a 50% chance for them to gain an additional charge. So when he's with Cable, he can basically increase his virus charges very, very quickly. Cable, the ability actually of Cable's regeneration effect is increased by 10%, so yeah, whatever. And then just a mutant one with Domino or the Magnetos, you get a 12% special attack bonus. So some nice synergies. Not the best. I like the magic one and the Cable one probably the best. The Fury buff is pretty cool as well. So let's move on. And one last thing I almost forgot about is his Sig ability. When opponent's power is drained or burned, they will degenerate the opponent, dealing 474.38 direct damage over 2 seconds. Of course, this is at Sig 200, so it probably does a lot less damage at lower levels. To me, this does not sound like something that Warlock needs to have to be a great champ. I think unduped, he's still going to be very, very solid, and he's going to be very, very useful. And the duped ability is just some extra degeneration damage. Perhaps it will be more of an annoyance on war defense if he's duped, where you're taking maybe some node additional attack percentages, maybe causing more damage. But in reality, I can't see it being a deal breaker for not ranking up this champ unduped. So there you have it, guys and gals. That's my little first look guide on Warlock. I'm sure I missed a couple things. This is a pretty new champ to me. I'm sure we'll see better ways to fight with him and use him in the future. But what can I say? I really like this champ. I like his animations. I like how he moves. I like how he looks. I like his abilities to stop regeneration. I like his power control. I like his armor break. I like that he's immune to poison, bleed, and cold snap frostbite. He's just a really, really cool champ. He's fun to play. One thing you're not going to get from him probably is huge damage. You're not going to see like Namor type damage with this guy, but that's often the case with champs that have a lot of utility. I personally really like the champ. I'd like to get him. I might spend a couple crystals and see if I can pull him off. He's a lot of fun to use. I think he's going to be very useful in the game. And yeah, he's going to be a counter for many champions that are very annoying, like Mr. Sinister and so forth. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I spent a lot of time on this one. Please subscribe, like, comment, dislike, ask questions or whatever. I really appreciate the support, and if you could share the video, I really appreciate that as well. And take care, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Target identified. Analysis complete. Please subscribe.